Good evening. This is KTN Prime. Now, following the 24th edition of the African Union, there is talk of an exit by African states from the International Criminal Court and the formation of an African court. Tonight on the program, we'll give you the lowdown on the process and the progress.
And to do that, we'll be hosting two gentlemen in studio. Justice and Legal Affairs Committee Chairman Samuel Chepkonga and Martin Olo, a political analyst. How sustainable is it? How practical is it? Does Africa really need an African court? Those are the questions we'll be seeking to answer in that discussion. But first, let's take a look at the top stories on KTN Prime tonight.
Na mara nyingine mkifanya maandamano mtimama na Raila na Kalonzo watazikuwa kwenye mstari ya mbele.
We welcome you to court. Mujiondoe kabisa, muache hiyo viti ya tikiti ambazo mlipatiwa. Tutarudi hapa.
The opposition now joins the Narok protest.
Never shall a worker be intimidated while any section of these people will.
Wilson Sossion records statement even as Northeastern teachers remain defiant.
We have a course on human and people's rights. Okay. So this is the next step. With or without the ICC, we would have had to take this step.
Divorcing the ICC, government launches the process.
Also coming up on KTN, eating from the poisonous tree. 18 children survive in Kakamega.
Welcome to the program. I'm Ben Kitile.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Linda Ogutu. William Sila is a sign language interpreter. He's at the bottom end of your screen. Now, CORD leaders have threatened to lead a massive protest in Narok County on February 23rd should the government fail to address corruption allegations against Governor Samuel Tunai.
The leaders were speaking during the burial of one of the victims of alleged to have been killed by the Kenya Anti-Bad police in demonstrations in Narok last week. KTN's Betty Kialo begins our coverage tonight.
It was evidently a painful send-off. A dark day for the family of 29-year-old Sikona Muntet. The wailing from those close to him painted a picture of how much of a loss his death was. Sikona is one of the people who lost their lives Monday last week during a chaotic protest in Narok County. The demonstrations saw thousands of protesters led by a section of local leaders trying to gain entry to county offices to present their petition against Governor Samuel Tunai. Leaders from various divides graced the burial that saw hundreds of mourners gather at Esupetai village. In their address during the burial, CORD principals Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka gave the Director of Public Prosecutions Keriako Tobiko 11 days ultimatum to withdraw charges against 5 Narok leaders arrested following last Monday's demonstrations.
Tutakuwa na nyinyi pamoja. Hatutakuwa kama damu ya hii kijana imemwagika kwa bure. Huyu kijana damu yake ni mwanzo ya safu mpya katika siasa ya Kenya hii. Na mara nyingine mkifanya maandamano mtimama na Raila na Kalonzo watazikuwa kwenye mstari ya mbele.
Wewe kama DPP advise your government kwamba you will have to go and withdraw this case immediately bila masharti yoyote. Usipofanya hivyo, Mheshimiwa Lentutu and your team, we welcome you to court. Mujiondoe kabisa, muache hiyo viti ya tikiti ambazo mlipatiwa. Tutarudi hapa.
Further, the leaders called for investigations and possible arrest of the officer who fired live bullets during the protests, killing 2 people and injuring others. Local leaders vowed not to relent in their demand for transparency and accountability from the governor, whose office has been dogged with corruption allegations. The leaders who had been summoned at the CID headquarters last week are expected to appear in court on the 13th of February for the mention of their case in which they are charged with incitement. Betty Kialo, KTN.
Teachers posted to northeastern Kenya have today proven to be the biggest daredevils after they defied a return to work order by their employer, the Teachers Service Commission. TSC had threatened to take disciplinary action on teachers who are yet to return to work by today. But as KTN's Edith Kimani reports, the teachers chose instead to spend the day cheering on their union chief as he appeared before the CID. Take a look.
Not even the scorching heat would dampen the spirit of the teachers gathered outside the CID headquarters. For a while, motorists were treated to singing, dancing, and finally, wild celebration as the man of the hour, the Kenya National Union of Teachers Secretary General Wilson Sosion arrived. His presence here a matter of national interest after the CID summoned the union boss over allegations of incitement to violence and disobedience in the continuing impasse between teachers in northeastern and government. But even before the CID could grill him, Sosion's position was made clear.
I want to remove the misconception that Sosion as an individual must be held to account.
The questioning would happen behind closed doors, and the teachers, undeterred, waited patiently for the verdict. As this was happening, the harsh reality of the teachers' absence continued to be felt in northeastern Kenya. For 2 weeks now, classes in County High School in Garissa have looked like this. The students waiting quietly for their tutorless lessons to end. And now, patience has turned into frustration.
I have very many applications for those same vacancies. So if I want to employ somebody who finished the last 2 years, Bachelor of Education from public university, I have applications.
These concerns echoed across the wider northeastern region, whose leaders have called for the sacking of the defiant teachers. These threats, however, seem to have minimal impact on the teachers who, after waiting a whole day, rose once more to welcome their leader. And his message was unchanged.
You must be granted transfers with immediate effect.
With that, the Teachers Service Commission is left to make its move. A move that could receive major backlash given the increased and crucial backing teachers now have.
From today, we are going to remain together. We are going to plan together. We are going to assist one another. We are going to strengthen our solidarity. We are the people who are going to decide on Kenya's destiny.
The TSC now has to decide if it will keep its word and replace a reported 2,000 teachers or make concessions at the expense of the already suffering students. Edith Kimani, KTN.
All eyes will be on that, and we shall continue to keep tabs on that developing story, for we shall be keeping you updated. Now, the 24th ordinary session of the African Union has just completed, and the push for an African court continues. Now, that is according to Foreign Affairs Secretary Amina Mohamed. But as Kenya pledges commitment to the Malabo Protocol signed in June last year, other African countries are being more cautious over the initiative. KTN's Asha Mwilu reports.
While Kenya failed to secure enough signatories for the Malabo Protocol, seeking to give an African court the mandate to try crimes against humanity, Foreign Affairs Secretary Amina Mohamed insists the plan is on track.
Already you have 11 countries that have signed up. We need 14 for it to enter into force, right? So we hope that the 11 countries will quickly process their instruments of ratification.
In the AU deliberations, Kenya, Guinea-Bissau, and Benin signed the protocol. 8 more countries are said to have signed the Malabo Protocol at the Addis Ababa legal office afterwards.
This is a natural, organic step that we took. We would have had to move in that direction, yeah? So it is not because as a reaction to the ICC or anything like that. Obviously, the ICC probably expedited this.
Although Uganda is among the countries that have so far signed the protocol, the Kenyan delegation was reportedly underwhelmed by Uganda's laid-back support to the initiative. An initiative that Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni declared as his own.
Kwa hiyo mimi nitaleta motion kwa African Union kikao chijao Nataka sisi wote tutoke kwenye koti hiyo ya wazungu wakae na koti yao.
But while Uganda has an international crimes division, she has failed to prosecute LRA Commander Dominic Ongwen, who is currently before the ICC for charges on crimes against humanity. Kenya has herself failed in an attempt to create an international crimes division at the High Court.
We are at an advanced stage to set an international crimes division of the High Court.
But the president has given a hefty commitment to the proposed African court.
Kenya today pledges $1 million to the establishment of the African Court of Justice and Human Rights.
The Malabo Protocol was adopted in June last year in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, when regional leaders agreed to expand the jurisdiction of the African Court of Justice and Human Rights to include international crimes. Part of the proposal was to grant serving heads of states and other senior officials of governments the immunity from prosecution of the same crimes. Ashamwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
Let's put this into perspective now, shall we? And before our discussion tonight, our big question, and on our big question tonight, we are asking you, should all international crimes committed in Africa be tried by an African court?
Let us know what you think. You can tweet us at KTN Kenya, at Ben_Kiteli, and of course at Linda Ogutu. We'd love to sample some of your thoughts during this bulletin. Let's stay with this discussion. And Kenya has pledged $1 million for this African court, of course a replacement, quote-unquote, of the International Criminal Court. In studio, I'm joined by Samuel Chepkonga. He's the chair of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee in the National Assembly. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And I am joined by Martin Olo, political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
Mr. Chepkonga, I'll begin with you. Is the African Union interested in getting justice, or is this because the ICC has targeted a sitting head of state?
First and foremost, this is not a reaction to the ICC. This process commenced in 1998 with the adoption of the Okodoko Protocol. Under Protocol 1.
Speak up a little bit.
Under Article 1 of that protocol, it stated very clearly that an African Court of Human and People's Rights was going to be created. At that point, it had not been given powers to prosecute criminal activities. But later on, under the Malabo Protocol, this the mandate of the court was expanded to include criminal activities. What the African Union is seeking to do is to include criminal cases to be prosecuted by this court. The reason why the African countries are very uncomfortable with the ICC is because of the reasons that other countries have given. It is bound to be manipulated politically by those member states that are powerful in the ICC. And this has been the problem that, that has prevented the United States of America from joining the ICC or signing the Rome Treaty. If I bring this into context, when the Senate ICC, the Congress of the United States Senate Committee on ICC, when it was reviewed as to whether it should sign and ratify the Rome Statute, the former Senator Rod Krams stated very clearly that this treaty is very bad for America. And he said that this treaty must be opposed. It is not in the interest of America. And China has equally said the same thing. India has equally said the same thing. And Africans have said the same thing.
Okay.
We are not seeking to run away from international justice. What we want is fair justice that is not partial.
Martin, this is not a very good quote. What do you think?
You know, what my friend Sam amuses me about is that he says that the international community, court is open to manipulation. So is the African court open to manipulation, because if they are thinking that world leaders will manipulate ICC, so African leaders are also preparing to manipulate the African court.
So basically they're looking for a system they can manipulate.
Absolutely. And then you see, to argue about America and to argue about China and then go ahead and want to establish a court in Africa is missing the point. If ICC is not good, then the African court is also not good. So you can't have it on one end and not on the other. In any case, African leaders have told us in no uncertain terms that they want immunity. Mr. Chepkonga here is one of those people who are pushing to give immunity to both the president and the deputy. So, and African leaders also want immunity. So if they want immunity for their presidents,
they want immunity for their deputy presidents. For whom are they preparing the African court? For their opposition, for their opponents.
Okay.
Linda, let me just put this into perspective.
Okay.
You know, the former Prime Minister of United Kingdom stated this very clearly while trying to persuade the British. And he said this, Robin Cook himself. He said, the ICC is not being created for the Prime Ministers of UK and the Presidents of the United States of America. I mean, if ICC is not created for the UK Prime Minister, why would we create a court for Kenyan President?
So then the African one is being created for opposition.
I mean, Martin, you know you are my very good friend.
Yeah.
You know, nobody is trying to run away from injustice. We are saying any crime that attracts genocide, that can go to the level of international crimes, that should be able to attract international sanctions. But not any crime that is of violence nature. You know, conflicts, you know, if you look at what ICC has just done, it is investigating violences. For instance, in the Kenyan case, it has decided to investigate political and election violence.
All right.
These are not international crimes. These are not genocide.
Mr. Chepkongo, let me see if I can rephrase this.
Yes.
The African Union is trying to come up with an African court that will be fully funded and managed by Africa. Okay. Some of the judges there will most likely be nominated by sitting heads of state. How practical is it then that you can have sitting heads of state, African leaders prosecuted in this particular court? That is the concern.
Let me tell you, Linda, it is even terrible and worse for the ICC. The ICC is funded exclusively 60% by the EU countries. The EU countries are funding the ICC 60%. And someone has said that there is a relationship between funding levels and control and influence of any institution. We know that this court, we are told that the states that form the ICC are equal. We cannot be equal. How can we be equal with our former colonial masters? For instance, the UK, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish. Okay. I mean, that is not possible. Martin? These are people who are exercising political influence over the court itself.
You know what my good friend Chepkonga is saying, that they are also looking for a court they can control, where they can fund and also influence. Now, if that corollary is true, then we don't need an African court, because it's as bad as the ICC court. And that also means that we are wasting our resources. Even the $1 million that we've committed to it, we could as well do better things with it in Kenya.
What are the options from where you sit?
From where I sit, Kenya has has promulgated a constitution which says that any international treaty that we are parties to is part of our law. So the beginning point is to change that part of the constitution and then say, no, we are not going to do this, we will only do the things we want. So first we have agreed that any international treaty we are signatories to is part of our law. And then we have also said that as a people, we abhor genocide, we abhor international crime, so we want to be law-abiding. So for that reason, we shouldn't be fighting a court just because we may be the candidates today. Tomorrow, it will be somebody else. And indeed, what we've seen from an African perspective is that we have been unable to even subscribe to AU. So AU is starved of resources. Now you're telling me to establish a court and you'll fund it. They will not be able to fund it. And so we are simply in a game of musical chairs.
You know, Linda, Martin loses the point that this court was not established as a reaction to ICC. This process commenced as far back as 1988.
Indeed, but you realize the push really was the
It's just that it has been accelerated because of the injustice that has been visited upon the Africans themselves. Okay. Because if you look at the ICC itself, it is exclusively prosecuting Africans. But nobody has told us. Let me tell you, Linda. Nobody has told us why Ocampo terminated investigations that they were undertaking in Iraq, where over 200,000 people have been killed. Now, you know, you are investigating some violence that occurred in a stadium in Guinea, in which about 57 to 150 people died. And you are calling that one genocide. I mean, it has not reached it is the crimes that were committed there were against a certain laws in that country. But they are not of international nature as to attract international Linda, community sanctions. Linda, and so what I'm saying is this. You know, Martin is trying to dismiss this matter as if You know, he's my very good friend. We have been in school together. It's unfortunate that he holds weird ideas like this when he does. Instead of supporting a court that is run by Africans. And we are saying nobody is trying to run away from injustice. What we are saying is that if you commit any crimes of the nature that attracts international sanctions, you must be taken before an African court.
But the concern is, this is an African court. The judges are appointed by the leaders. How practical is it? That is the underlying issue.
No, let me explain this. Let me contextualize this. Let me contextualize this. I don't want Martin to monopolize this process.
But you do realize he also has this.
Let me explain to you, Linda. We have courts in Kenya. As you know, I'm the chair of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament. We have courts in Kenya. They are staffed by Kenyans. We appear before this court. Nobody has said that if Chepkong appears in that court, that any judge is going to be compromised. Why is it that our own judges, we don't claim, because Martin has appeared in that court and a lawyer is presiding over it, that that lawyer will be compromised?
But you do realize there's some position.
No, there's nothing like that. Justice must be dispensed in accordance with the law.
Linda, we're losing this issue.
Okay.
I want us to go on record that this court is not as demonized. I mean, it's not the way it's demonized. Our president has been before this court. This court has found that there is actually no enough evidence to prosecute him. So it's actually been let off the hook. So it's possible that even the deputy president will come out of this thing. It's possible. So instead of blaming the court and finding ways to demonize it, let us actually believe that it's administering justice. And so that if the president today was released and the deputy is released tomorrow, everybody realizes that this court actually followed some rule of law. But now to say that we need an African court, as if to suggest an African court will have more justice than any other court, is a misnomer that I want my friend to disabuse. Because when we say that there's nothing specific and there's nothing particular. And you see, he's saying that this court is not a reaction. The Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs says that the ICC expedited it. Now he's saying that this court is foreign, and Museveni says he has no faith in this court. The other day, Museveni allows Ongwen to go. Now, Museveni says he'll sponsor a bill on the motion in AU. He doesn't. He hasn't signed it. So what are we hearing? Mixed messages, and these are things that we should be able to.
Is there a flip-flop of some sort from African nations?
Let me tell you, Linda. You know, Martin misses the point. You know, the African.
Both of you are accusing each other of missing the point.
All the time you miss the point. You know, and you've been a good colleague of mine. You know, the African court is not being established for escapists. It is being established for purposes of processing justice within the African continent. You know, we need to contextualize the events that have taken place in Africa. You know, let me tell you, if ICC was there during the time of liberation of South Africa, even matters of self-determination would have been criminalized as international genocide. In fact, Nelson Mandela today would be languishing in an ICC jail. Thanks for the fact that ICC was not in existence at that time. It has, in fact, you know, I like what Professor Mohammed Mamdani, the Ugandan professor who is teaching law in Columbia University, he has said ICC is a Western-driven institution and that it is not good for Africans. This is an all-eminent professor. No one has been able to challenge him.
My friend hasn't, or is refusing to understand there's something like international humanitarian law. There is a way in which just war is waged, and there's a threshold beyond which you go, and it's no longer just war. So he knows that whether you're in a guerrilla warfare, you cannot target civilians. Whether you're in a guerrilla warfare, you cannot use children. Whether you're in a guerrilla warfare, you cannot commit mass rape and mass murder. So you know that. So if you're going to commit crimes, it doesn't matter what your cause is, however genuine, however bona fide it is. So to say that had ICC been there during the colonial times is to miss the point again, because we know that even today people are going to court and they are getting verdicts in the UK against the British government around Mau time and around colonial action. So it's possible to get justice.
You know, Linda, just one moment. Just one
I am
question.
running out of time.
No, I understand. Okay. I know you are pressed for time.
Director, 1 or 2 more minutes?
You know, one of the things that Martin has completely failed to address in all this debate is why other countries have refused to join. Big democracies, bigger than even Kenya itself.
That's their choice.
Why China has refused? Why India has refused?
Okay.
Why the US has refused?
Okay.
Why has Professor Mamdani called ICC International Colonial Court.
Mr. Chepkonga, we have to wrap this up, but thank you so much for joining us on KTN Prime. Samuel Chepkonga, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee Chairman, National Assembly, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Martin Law, political analyst, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching this discussion on the formation of the African Court. Let's see how sustainable this is.
Remember, you can join that particular discussion online. Our big question that we're asking is, should all international crimes committed in Africa be tried by an African court? Now, in other news, 18 children from Mwikunda village in Kakamega County are receiving treatment after eating poisonous wild fruits. Villagers say the tree they ate from is no ordinary tree. It has stood on a grave for 24 years. The villagers now want it uprooted, and KTN's Dorcas Wangera tells us why.
It has stood here for 24 years, a towering wild trunk branching out in all directions. No one in Mukunda village in Lureko, Kakamega knows its actual name. It stands on the grave of Alia Mahulu's deceased sister-in-law.
Hii miti yenye ilimea tu kwa hii kaburini. Hii kaburini ilikuwa ya ndugu yangu, bibi yake alikufa. Sasa hii kaburini hiyo miti yenyewe ikamea. Sisi kukuchua ni mwandazimu. Mtu akikula anakufa. Kukuchua itaua mtu
kama njugu. Sasa ukikula ni tamu.
Even though the tree's fruits have been seemingly forbidden to the villagers, one child could not resist its allure. 10 a.m. Sunday, Beatrice Wamuhoya's son tasted its wild fruits, and with the innocence of a child,
akaokota moja akaanza kula. Sasa vile alionja hiyo tunda akaona ni nzuri sana. Akaokota nyingi, sasa akaenda kugawa wenzake.
All the children who ate would get sick moments later.
7 watoto wakaanza kuwa wachovu sana. Sasa vile walikuwa wachovu wengine sasa wakaanza kuhara, kutapika.
Kufika kitu saa 10, saa 11 hapo nasikia mama mkwe anakuja kunielezea. Atuwe mama Ivon, huyu mtoto wako mwenye anatapika huyu, kuna historia huko juu kwa shemeji yako wamekula matunda kutoka kwa kaburi.
18 children aged between 2 and 14 received treatment at St. Mary's Hospital in Mumias.
So with the investigations, we established that they must have had a wild fruit poison. So we took investigations and we've been giving treatment, and as at now they are all stable.
Asha Osman's 7 grandchildren say they will always remember the experience. She wants nothing to do with the tree, but she says she can't do anything about it because it stands in her neighbor's compound. The onus rests with Alia Mahulu. It's his decision what happens to the tree. The fact that it stands on a grave has already awakened superstition in the village. Some say the tree was planted by those who suspect foul play with the deceased's death, that it is her silent monitor on the living. Alia says he will pull it down after all the children are discharged. Dorcas Wangera, KTN, Kakamega.
You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you for staying with us. There's a massive push to form an African court to replace the International Criminal Court. That is forming the basis of our big question on KTN Prime. You're asking, should all international crimes committed in Africa be tried by an African court?
And Ochengo Kwe on Twitter says, how many African leaders have courts in their respective countries, but their legal systems are kangaroo?
At Mitema says, no, we need to be saved from ourselves.
Keep the SMSs and the tweets coming. The number is 22155. Twitter handles at Linda Ogutu, at Ben_Kitili, and at KTN Kenya. We'll take a short break. Don't go too far.
Stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us here on KTN Prime. Welcome back to the program.
Now, Saturday was a significant day for the Njorin Cheke. They welcomed new members into the Council of Ameru Elders.
Now, the coronation ceremony comes as the council is currently facing opposition from a section of Meru leaders who say it oversteps its mandate. But as KTN's Sharon Momanyi now tells us, the Njorin Cheke appears to be reinventing itself.
For centuries, they have been viewed as the custodians of the Ameru culture.
Being at the apex of the community's judicial system, they would make and execute community laws, listen to and settle disputes, as well as pass on community norms across generations. They are the Njurin Cheke.
Mutoto kama anafanya mbaya, Njurin Cheke, huyo mtoto atajua, tutampamba na atatosheka vile babake anamwambia.
For the longest time, the revered Council of Elders has been the reserve of tough-talking elderly men. But now, the face of the largely mysterious council is changing. The coronation ceremony held by the Njurin Cheke on Saturday saw younger faces initiated into the council.
Ni njuri ya miaka ile inakuja ya kesho. Hapa tuna maprofessors, tuna cabinet secretary, tuna engineers, tuna madaktari wa siasa na madaktari wa ndawa.
The event, which was held at the Elders Shrine at Shiakariga in Tharaka South, saw 74 people initiated into the Njuri Council. This including young leaders from various sectors, among them Tharaka-Nithi Senator Kithure Kindiki. So transformed is the Council of Elders that it would crown the young politician spokesman of the entire Ameru community.
Na sijui kama mnaelewa nguvu ambayo inatokana na mtu kujua ya kwamba watu wao ama watu wa nyumbani wanampenda.
Among the new recruits is Kenya's ambassador to Brazil, Kirimi Kaberia. Kirimi hails the changing face of the council to be one that would involve young Meru leaders in the preservation of their culture.
It's all of us coming together as young people of Meru and saying there is something about this culture that is worthy preserving.
The event was one of the biggest initiation ceremonies conducted by the elders, coming at a time when the council's very existence is facing rebuke. Meru Governor Peter Munya was visibly missing at the ceremony, which drew together all the top leaders from the Ameru community. Last week, Munya and Igembe South MP Mithika Linturi called for the disbandment of the current Njurin Cheke. They said the elders are overstepping their mandate by engaging in politics for selfish gain.
It is Njurin Cheke that is actually trying to say the past was excellent. The past had great values. The past was full of tenets and principles that made this community what it was. And it is those principles that today we as young people, 74 in number, including the head of the Senate, are saying we wish to join the rest of the world and share with them this wonderful effort.
Women are traditionally not enrolled into the council because they face the possibility of marrying outside the community, thus not entrusted with the custodianship of the community's customs and secrets. Sharon Momanyi, KTN.
Indeed, a digital Njurin Cheke. Thank you, Sharon. Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. blames the standoff in the county of Makueni on political malice and outside interference. Mutula says it is unfortunate that the county government may be dissolved, but acknowledges that that may be the only way to unlock the current leadership impasse in the county. Here's the second part of his interview with KTN's Aaron Ocheng.
Many would say that you're not a politician and you're not self-made politician. Maybe you are riding on the gains made by your father. How would you answer them?
That statement carries some element of truth. I'm not riding on it. The fact is that I'm Mutula Kilonzo Jr. by virtue of being born by Mutula Kilonzo. So therefore, it's not a question of riding. I was born Mutula Kilonzo Jr. And therefore, everything that he did and everything that he has done, whether good or bad, is bound to be on my shoulder.
In a nutshell, how would you describe the genesis of the problems of Makueni County?
The genesis of the problems in Makueni County started at the date of election. The minute the elections were completed and the governor was elected and the county assembly was formed and they elected a speaker, that is when the problems of Makueni County started. Presumably because the Speaker of the Makueni County is said and has confessed to be of the Jubilee Alliance and particularly the URP party. And to some extent, therefore, there's been an element of push and pull on a political basis from the inception of the county.
There's talk of dissolution of Makueni County. Do we have to go that far? Or do you think there can be a solution to this?
The process as it is now, where we are at, is where the president needs to form a commission. That commission of inquiry composes of 6 people. 2 people who are experts in conflict management, I assume, and who are not from Makueni. My only presumption is that the drafters of this law envisioned that there will be 2 people who would then attempt to find a method of resolving the matter or find out whether there has been an effort to resolve the matter before you determine that the county can be dissolved. There are also two persons who have not been in politics from Makueni for at least a period of 10 years, and a judge and the chairman of the National Police Service Commission. It's important that this commission comes into force quickly. And I say so because the persons who have been given the task of ensuring we do not get to where we are, in my view, have failed. We have one, an Auditor General. There are issues about either misappropriation of funds or misapplication of funds. Those issues have not come to the fore. They still remain allegations. There are issues about, there's a person in the name of a controller of budget. These are the people who are supposed to ensure that counties have complied within the period of the law. To have a situation where we look as if you're stuck, yet there are institutions that are supposed to ensure these things happen, it pains me. And lastly, the questions of budgets are not new because there are counties that have already complied with what we are referring to as ceilings on budgets. The tragedy about it, Aaron, and it's fair that I tell you, is because the proposal to amend the law to include ceilings, the proposals on ceilings on budget under the Public Finance Management Act was proposed at the Senate by me and was later amended to remove one clause, one phrase by Senator Khalwale, who is now the chairman of Public Accounts Committee of the Senate.
Do you also support the dissolution? And if it is dissolution, where does now Makueni County remain?
If after determination, and I said we have, if you look at the composition of this committee finds that there is no other method in Makueni, we, the Senate, will have to agree with those recommendations because, as I said, they have the methods of interrogating the petition filed by the petitioners from Makueni in detail, so that first we remove the politics of it, because what we are going through is not is both a political process and a legal process. But we expect the composition of the commission to be able to dissect this into such minute detail, so that if there is a person or persons in the assembly or in the county government who are responsible for this impasse, those persons, I would myself request that a recommendation be made that they be barred from holding public office, because it is a tragedy to have a county that is completely stuck, yet the persons who are the leaders in that county are receiving salaries.
One-on-one there with Aaron Ochieng. Let's focus on a big question tonight. We'd asked you, should all international crimes committed in Africa be tried by an African court?
Henry Mecha says no African leader has ever admitted that there are crimes against humanity in Africa.
Atrabizi says, why do our African leaders think there are African solutions to justice when the supporting structures of justice don't work?
And Samuel on Twitter says, enhancing the African court won't enhance autonomy because 75% of the AU budget is financed by donors.
At Kenyan Boy says, if AU gives immunity to criminal presidents, that won't change with African courts, cushion courts.
We'll take a quick break. After this break, it's KTN Business with Abby Agina.
watching KTN Prime.
My name is Marcy Kanye in Eldoret, and this is KTN.
KTN Business.
Well, a very good evening and welcome to KTN Business. My name is Abi Agina. Kenya's aviation sector is looking to grow its footprint by reviving stalled projects and mismanaged airstrips across the country. While officiating over the first ever aviation workshop, Deputy President William Ruto flagged the need to have a more vibrant sector that can match other countries in Africa. The move could be a boon for local airlines looking to grow their businesses. In an effort to boost transport connectivity and ease movement in the country, the government is working on a plan to have more airstrips across the country. Kenya's aviation sector has grown immensely over the last 10 years, but lack of proper infrastructure has held back accelerated growth. The government is now working with county governments to work out a strategy to have the country more connected through the air.
Most counties have put in place rehabilitation of airstrips as core to the success of devolution in their county integrated development plans.
And there is no way at the KQ ikianguka, if it cannot solve, then the rest of the industry gets finished.
The Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure is directed to, as a matter of urgency, develop a policy framework to support the collaboration between the national government, county governments, and the private sector.
However, not every county has the ability to support a fully fledged airstrip, but more basic airstrips can be used to allow light aircraft to land and take off. The Kenya Airports Authority has been working on this front with recent upgrades to the Isiolo and Malindi and Lamu airports, an indication of this undertaking. The aviation industry contributes about 10% to the country's GDP, which the government hopes to double by close of the year.
Our government will ensure that our airports are integrated with the wider transport system through improved access by road and rail.
This new thinking could be a major boost for aviation companies seeking to grow their business. But in a move that could be counterproductive to the aviation growth, county governments are pushing to have joint control of facilities in their counties.
In the county, 18 airports have paved runways, with 181 having unpaved runways. Some of them a little bit muddy, others with potholes, and others with quite a bit of bush around. Counties are committed and eagerly seeking to partner with local airlines through provision of both direct and chartered flights to these airstrips.
KAA is currently the mandated body charged with managing airports in the country. According to Ruto, a sizable percentage of airstrips in the country hold enormous potential to spur regional tourism and intra-county tourism. Competition in low-cost carriers has significantly triggered a jump in demand for air travel in the country. The growing demand has been fueled by competitive pricing among carriers, which continues to enhance revenues for airlines, and for consumers, it eases the burden of travel. Solar systems vendor M-Kopa has announced a 1.1 billion shillings capital injection into the business for expansion. The equity and debt deal is being led by M-Kopa's lead investor, LGT Venture, as the company plans to introduce new products, grow its market in East Africa, as well as license its technology to other markets. M-Kopa Solar was launched in 2012, offering solar power solutions to households not connected to the national grid. The firm has installed over 150,000 residential solar systems in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania, and plans to further expand its distribution and introduce new products to reach an even larger customer base. Buyers pay 3,000 shillings upfront and then settle the balance in daily installments of 50 shillings via M-Pesa, guaranteeing them off-grid light and power. Other investors in M-Kopa Solar include Lundin Foundation, and Treehouse Investments, as well as new investments from Blue Haven Initiative. In 2013, the company injected 1.8 billion shillings into the business as part of its third round of fundraising. Well, let's now take a look at how your money performed in our financial report. Well, that brings us to the end of our business bulletin. My name is Abi Agina, and we do apologize for not having Job Center today. We had a bit of time constraints, but do keep it KTN. Coming up next is Lynn Washira with the Day Sports.
KTN Business.
Well, it's time for Day's Sports. I'm Lynn Washira. A section of Kenya's retired elite athletes want Athletics Kenya to conduct further investigations into Boston and Chicago Marathon champion Rita Cheptoo doping case. Led by Beijing Olympics 800 meters champion Wilfred Bungei, the athletes fear that those involved in supplying banned substances in the country have been going scot-free to continue hunting for more victims, only to free again while the athlete pays for the price.
Despite Rita Cheptoo's 2-year ban receiving criticism for not being enough, Athletics Kenya Medical Commission adhered to the 2014 World Anti-Doping Code, which is when the violation occurred. But now a section of retired elite athletes from the country are demanding for more from Athletics Kenya.
And if we need to bring this menace to a stop, is to come out openly. If there were people who are involved, we should know, or the relevant authorities should know, so that we don't only sacrifice the athletes while they are major stakeholders here. We have the managers, we have the AK itself.
Rita Cheptoo is not the only athlete to suffer the consequences of a failed drug test without anyone else taking responsibility, and the Professional Athletics Association of Kenya is calling on Sports Cabinet Secretary Dr. Hassan Wario to intervene, while 2008 Olympic champion Wilfred Bungei has urged athletes to exercise honesty.
Cheptoo was found to have used EPO, which is an injectable, then automatically there must be somebody who was doing that. Who is that? Why is he not in jail? And that is why we have always said it is better to be criminalized, and especially those who are responsible bears the biggest consequences. That is why we are saying Athletics Kenya, when there was an alarm, with the resources that they have, and if they do love these athletics as they claim, then what did they do?
But even as exposing the perpetrators seem as one of the ways to get to the root of doping in the country, Dr. Hassan Wario is yet to make public names of people found to have aided the vice. The names were presented to him in a sealed envelope by the Moni Wekesa-led anti-doping task force last year.
It still remains sealed, yeah? But anyway, we'll talk about the envelope at another time. Not today, because I don't have it here.
If the issues are not addressed in the next 1 week, the Professional Athletics Association of Kenya has planned to ensure athletes boycott the national cross-country trials set for the 14th of this month.
We are going to don our tools, as you can see, or give them to the AK fraternity to share and to make the full team. I think those people working the AK are enough to make a complete team.
And while Kenya will host Tanzania in the first round of the Africa Championships mid-February, while countries like Nigeria and Senegal have dined with the big boys in beach football, Kenya is still at its infancy and hopes the match against Uganda over the weekend will be a catalyst enough to spur the growth of beach football in the country.
And Senegal remain the most successful national beach football teams in Africa. They have participated in 4 beach World Cups. The East African region lags behind, just as is the case in football, and Kenya now hopes to put up structures in place. Kenya played Uganda over the weekend, and the federation hopes the friendly match will spur beach football in the county of Mombasa.
Tunatarajia mashindano mengine ambayo yatafanyika hapa na kirasmi tarehe hiyo 15 February.
At the moment, there are no recognized referees in the country who can officiate beach football. However, because the sport is spreading fast, plans are underway to offer courses for locals here. Kenya will host Tanzania in the first round of the African Championship, whose finals will be held in Seychelles in April. The first leg pitting the two East African neighbors is scheduled for between February the 13th and 15th. The return leg will be held between February the 20th and 22nd in Tanzania.
We are very lucky that we are starting a game which is going to help the young people, especially in the coast region, because these matches will benefit. We are going to train referees here who are going to be, most of them are going to be international referees officiating beach football.
And that's all we had for you tonight. I'm Lynn Washira. Do have a very good night.
Right, on our big question tonight, we were asking you, should all international crimes committed in Africa be tried by an African court? Let's see how you polled tonight. 78% of you said no, and only 22% said yes. Peter Kebwaro says, no, the court cannot bring Africa solutions but a way for leaders to avoid justice when they commit crimes.
Otonya Stanley says, the African court is created to prosecute political dissidents labeled as terrorists for challenging the despots.
And Pascal Chuma says, you should come together to preach the fifth commandment, you shall not kill, love your neighbor. Peace.
Taras Maina, we never arrested Sudan's Bashir after confirmed cases of genocide. Whose justice will the court uphold?
Another one here from, I'm looking for one. Protesters only says it will never happen with the type of top leaders we have. It is a show of how selfish they are.
Kenobok says, yes, in fact, the court can have an African definition for crimes against humanity and justice.
Geoffrey Ndege says, no, that court is politically driven. It is a shield for those African leaders eluding justice.
Those are your opinions. We thank you for taking part in our big question and indeed for watching KTN Prime. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Linda Ogutu.
I'm Ben Kitili. Thanks for watching. Good night.